Welcome back to the Free Code Camp podcast. I'm Quincy Larson, teacher and founder of freeCodeCamp.org. Today, we're talking with Emmett Naughton. He worked as a hospital janitor for years while teaching himself programming using FreeCodeCamp. He's the founder of Coder Dads, a chat community where dads encourage one another. We're going to talk about how to make ends meet while raising a family, recovering from getting laid off twice in the same year, Emmett's journey into the PHP Laravel ecosystem, and how to use social media effectively when you don't like using social media. I think a lot of us can relate to that. And finally, Emmett's sleep apnea and how fixing his sleep dramatically improved his thinking and his coding. Emmet, welcome to the Free Code Camp podcast.
Hey, great to be here.
Yeah, man. It's always great to talk with somebody who's successfully made like a serious career transition like you have. I wanted to start by talking about Laravel PHP, which is like an entire different ecosystem from full stack JavaScript that you initially learned when you were getting into software development. And I understand for like one of your more recent projects, you picked up Laravel and you've been building with that.
Yeah. So I wanted to, a new challenge, right? We love a good challenge. And also from what I've seen online with the Laravel community, seems like really awesome people to be hanging out with. So really great to be in that sort of ecosystem and then trying something new and seeing how it works on the web.
Yeah, so you've built projects with like Node.js and, React and, the typical like MERN stack, I guess is more conventionally called, which is, MongoDB, Express, Node, and React, or variations that, like, I understand you've also used like Vue.js and libraries like that. But what is different about the PHP community?
They seem very excited about everything PHP and web-based, and also just like seems super encouraging for newcomers who are coming into that ecosystem and testing the waters. And if I post anything online about needing help, I'll have, 4 or 5 people more than happy to jump in wanting to help. And I've had some negative things in the JavaScript ecosystem occasionally of like, why don't you know that already? And it's like, can be abrasive. So
what you're saying is, from your anecdotal firsthand experience, the PHP community seems to be a little bit more welcoming of beginners and less elitist?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. So FreeCodeCamp has been publishing courses on Laravel, PHP, and we've got just like all the other PHP, frameworks and stuff. But Laravel in particular has really like picked up steam recently. And it's interesting because when I was getting into software development, 12, 13 years ago, people would say,
I was told to stay away.
Yeah. Oh, PHP, that's like a janky language. Like, it's not designed for actually doing software development. It's just been like kind of like they built up all this stuff, but it's built it's underneath this really
web,
kludgy,
right?
Yeah,
it's for web. It's not for software engineering, and we're software engineers, and it's like,
yeah,
the ego just sort of puts me off sometimes. It's like,
which is kind of rich though, coming from JavaScript, of course, the lingua franca of the web, and probably the most widely used world programming language in the world. It was written like over the course of like a weekend, and the name itself is like derivative of Java, even though it has nothing to do with Java. Right. And it's just kind of like a janky thing to begin with. So, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry you experienced any elitism in the JavaScript world, because that's where I tend to hang out mostly. But maybe you could talk about some of the differences in building like a full stack app using Laravel versus Node and Express.
Well, I think firstly, Laravel having auth out of the box is really nice, because you've written auth from scratch before, right?
It's inadvisable. I have.
Yeah. Wouldn't recommend it to your friend, right? It's like,
it's not super secure, and it's not fun, and it's not interesting. Every web app, every mobile app is going to have auth, right? Unless it's just like this very specific tool. So authentication, like essentially like signing in, right? Like
Right.
that's like a fundamental thing, and it makes sense that like a framework would just have that out of the box. I'm pretty sure Ruby on Rails and a lot of other
Ruby,
frameworks do have
but
that out of the box.
I don't think there is a, React doesn't have. There's frameworks that are add-ons to it, right? Another node package here or that, but you still have to build it yourself. And being able to just hit the ground running of, oh, my application now has auth just by running it, the CLI. Now I can get to the fun stuff of building, building the project.
Yeah.
Right? So having fun with that, and then using the new Laravel starter kits that they just released within the last 6 months or so.
So these are like official boilerplates. Like if I
Yes.
want to build
Yeah.
a Node app, there's like Create React app, which does some of that stuff. There are like just various Node.js boilerplates you can find on GitHub, but they're not official. Laravel actually has official things like
Yes,
that.
for React, Vue, and I think Livewire, PHP thing. So and it's just a starter kit that you run in the terminal, and then boom, you have a directory ready to go. So
Yeah, that's cool. So it does make it easier to get started and get up and running. In terms of like developing in PHP versus developing in JavaScript, which would you say is like more error prone?
I mean, for me now it's PHP because of still just learning and tinkering with it, but error prone.
Yeah, I mean in terms of like just constantly having like error messages pop up, or not being able to, like things being counterintuitive, and you're like, oh, now I got to figure out what to do about this. Like I didn't realize this was an issue.
Yeah. I think JavaScript has some really funky ones. And a lot of it comes down to just like, did you run all the commands in the in the docs? But read the docs before trying to get up and running. I think that's
Yeah. People don't want to read the manual. That's
No.
like you get a new Nintendo game, you don't like bust out the manual and read it cover to cover. They stopped even including manuals in contemporary games because nobody reads them, right? They like build the tutorial into the first few levels or something like that, or force you to go through some awkward tutorial before you can actually get to the game.
Well, could you imagine a framework doing that? Having the tutorial built into the CLI, or like when you run Create React app, it goes, here's how you create a,
Yeah. I mean,
press
like
A to jump.
I think that a lot of people would find that off-putting, and what they're trying to do is get market share essentially, and like not patronize experienced devs by like, here's how to do the most fundamental thing. Like you can't really presume that people are a newcomer, but
Right.
obviously FreeCodeCamp has primary like foundational courses on most technologies like Flutter or Laravel or Node or whatever like that. So I think what the creators probably rightfully assume that if there's a critical mass around this a project like Svelte, for example, eventually FreeCodeCamp will create like a really comprehensive course, publish it on YouTube, we'll create like a handbook, or we'll create some tutorials, and they can kind of leave the tutorials and the actual kind of developer education aspect to organizations like us, and they can just focus on building a really powerful framework that is relatively intuitive and has a good developer experience. So yeah,
you guys have the tutorials, right? That's where FreeCodeCamp's where you go for.
And you get that for free. It's not like you have to like pay FreeCodeCamp to develop your documentation or your tutorials or anything like that. Like we just naturally cover stuff that people are learning and doing. So yeah. Support for this podcast comes from a grant from Wix Studio. Wix Studio provides developers tools to rapidly build websites with everything out of the box, then extend, replace, and break boundaries with code. Learn more at wixstudio.com. Support also comes from the 11,189 kind folks who support Free Code Camp through a monthly donation. You can join these chill human beings and help our charity's mission by going to donate.freecodecamp.org. I'm intrigued by this, but I want to learn a little bit more about you. So you're somebody who's been in the FreeCodeCamp community for years. I remember hearing about Coder Dads like many years ago and seeing people saying profound things about it. But I want to learn about your own journey into software development, because it is pretty aberrational. Like, I mean, you see like, you see a lot of people coming from like banking or from accounting or from other kind of knowledge worker jobs transitioning into software development. It's much less common to see someone who works as a janitor at a hospital teach themselves to code in their spare time and actually be able to work as a developer. Can you talk about that journey a little bit and maybe give us like take us back as far as you want?
Yeah. Um, so I learned HTML and CSS from making MySpace span pages, right? Nobody told me you could make money from that, by the way. You know, it would have jumped the would have career trajectory would have been totally different if somebody said, "Hey, you can charge money for this." And but yeah, went to college for electrical engineering. I wanted to build music guitar gear, like, and then found out that's really hard to start up in your garage.
Yeah.
So
Any sort of manufacturing thing is going to be
yeah,
much more complicated
expensive.
than software.
Right. And I actually remember the exact place I was as a janitor when I learned about Free Code Camp. I was mopping floors in an outpatient surgical recovery room, listening to the Code Newbies podcast with they were interviewing you. This was back in 2017, I think.
Yeah, probably.
And there's not very many places that I can remember when you like learn about something, right? It's like
Like where were you
when
when 9/11 happened? You know, like I remember exactly where I was
it's
when
like,
I learned about
remember,
that.
right?
Yeah.
I remember exactly where I was when I learned about Free Code Camp, and as a new dad I was working second shift, so 3 to 11:30 midnight. Um, Also new dad. I had a 6-month-old, and it was like, I can't, I can provide for my family off this, but I can't like. I felt like it wasn't a living, right? It's like, um, and also Free Code Camp can't beat that price point as
Yeah.
as a new dad trying to make ends meet. Um, and that started my whole thought process of all you need is a laptop and decent internet, and you can make stuff using code. Like that's so yeah, working odd hours, coming and starting in the morning before work. I was able to go through a lot of the exercises on Free Code Camp and start sharing my journey, and a bunch of years later here we are talking about just taking your time and making progress, keep on one step in front of the other. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel thrilled the serendipity of you hearing that podcast. The Code Newbie podcast is a huge inspiration for me, and obviously like Saran Yitbarak, whom I've interviewed on the Free Code Camp podcast, is kind of like my role model as far as like interviewing style and everything like that.
absolutely.
And she like I actually has a traditional journalism background. I worked in newspapers for like a while before I realized there was like absolutely no money in it, and it was like a a declining business. And she similarly worked in media, so I've learned a lot from her, and I still learn a lot from her and listen to her podcast periodically. That podcast is actually available in the Free Code Camp podcast or the Free Code Camp mobile app. We have like a podcast section, and we feature some podcasts such as the Code Newbie podcast there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so thrilled that you were just like, mopping the post op
floor
recovery.
Yep.
Yeah, and that you heard this, and then you're like, okay, cool, let's do it. Talk about like that process from like the revelation that, oh, really, all I need is a computer, internet connection. I could potentially go build stuff. I can potentially make money on the internet, and potentially have a remunerative career doing stuff that is intellectually challenging and where you're just constantly learning and stuff like that. Whereas I mean, I used to mop floors at a grocery store. I would go in at like 6 a.m. and open the grocery store, mop all the floors, face all the groceries, do stocking, and take the cardboard boxes from the pallets and put them in the giant trash compactor thing and try not to get my arm stuck in there. You know, like I did a lot of those kind of jobs when I was younger too. And it's you don't really get a lot better at it. It's not like you're like 10x better at mopping the floor.
I'm
after
a
a year of
10x
experience.
mopper. I'm a 10x. Yeah.
There's like a kind of a low skill cap, but there's not really a skill cap on getting good at like Laravel, right?
Laravel
Like,
or anything technical, because the ecosystem's constant. Like there's not a new mop technology coming out, right? I mean, there may be. I'm not to, don't need big mop coming after me.
yeah.
but yeah, it's with the ever changing ecosystems and new stuff coming out and what you can do with technology. It's like you always sort of have to keep leveling up and trying different things and seeing what's out there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, like what you do from that point. You have this revelation and you've got a young child. You said you're like, you've only been a dad for like 6 months. And for anybody listening who has been a parent, like those first really 2 years are just absolutely brutal, because you're like changing diapers constantly. You're waking up in the middle of the night to rock the baby back to sleep. You're helping mom with, feeding, because like a lot of times you have to store it in the bottle or you're on formula or something like that. And so you're constantly feeding the baby, and then it's screwing up your own sleep. So you're not really thinking, right? Like I'm trying to like put myself back into that where I was 6 months in. Like how did you proceed from there when you've got this, crying baby at home, and you have this job that is helping you make ends meet, but it's not an exceptional job? Doesn't sound like.
Yeah. It was. I had a revelation again. Being able to listen to podcasts and while I worked made it manageable. Made it like I could sort of upskill while working by listening to other people's stories and technical topics. But it came to this realization is like, would my kid be proud of me if it was like this was my job for the rest of my life? It's pretty heavy thing to be thinking, but sleep deprived and working evenings, it was had a lot of those things. It was like, oh, I need to push myself to create a better life for my family.
Yeah. And like I watched this movie, A Bronx Tale, or it might be A Bronx Tale. It's like a 90s movie. It's got Robert De Niro, and he plays the dad, and his son is kind of like starting to look up to the local gangster instead of to him, because he's just a bus driver, right? Like he drives the bus, and he believes in like, an honest day's work for honest pay, and like he's like this kind of like very old school guy. And his son doesn't necessarily like look up to him. He looks up to the flashy gangster who's got all the power and influence in the community and stuff like that. And it's like this interesting dynamic, and like that is certainly something that motivates me as well. I want my kids to like look up to me and think like, my dad actually like has an impact. And I spend a lot of time working like jobs like Taco Bell. I even work construction, telemarketing, stuff like that. And I did what I could to take pride in construction. I took a lot of pride in it, but it was too hard. I scrubbed out of construction. I can't do it. I don't know how anybody does that. But like telemarketing, I was like, am I going to tell them, grow up and have kids and tell them that I call people and annoy them for a living? Like that didn't feel like a career. And I had all these friends who had finished high school and gone on to college and stuff, who were working as like physicians and things like that. And it was just like, I got to do more. I've got to aspire to more. So I think I kind of empathize with what you're saying here. But I can imagine what that's like. So you have this impetus, and you studied engineering. Like electrical engineering is arguably, harder than computer science as a major. You've spent all this time learning about like circuits and probably learning all the mathematics and all this stuff too. So in theory, this stuff does somewhat translate over to like working as a software engineer. So
it does, which is, helpful, but it also isn't the like I still had to do a lot of work to get, it's not just a shoe in, like, you have the degree, check, here's a job.
Yeah.
It's
What is the job market like for a newly graduated electrical engineer? Is it hard to get a good job?
um I think it depends on what industry, right? Is like if you can go into oil and gas, you a lot of it's defense contracting, um and engineering stuff for Lockheed Martin and
Yeah. Yeah,
um
building components on like some
some
aircraft
GPS
carrier.
tracking. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just and also things break, right? So it's like how do we um things physically get worn out in hardware and electrical engineering. So it's like probably replacing stuff on aircraft carriers and stuff like that. So there's um the jobs are there, right? It's
Yeah. So I guess one of my questions would be why were you working at this hospital when you, in theory, like, was there some reason that you didn't choose to pursue going and working at like a defense contractor or something like that? Was it like an ideological thing, or
I
you
think it
just
was
not
it
want
was
to do it?
ideological, very Goodwill Hunting. Um, the scene from Goodwill Hunting played through my
Yeah,
mind.
where he goes and talks about clubbing the baby seals. It's
Yeah,
a great movie.
yeah, yeah.
If anybody hasn't watched it, you should watch it.
Um, but in the the whole ethical, point is changes what industry you want to work in and what you want to do day to day, right? It's like these are things to consider when you are interviewing for jobs. It's so yeah, and also I think just life happened and I needed a way to support a family.
Yeah.
So
If you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you had a kid? And also, anybody who's watching the video edition and it looks like I'm like a vampire right now, it is dark as heck. It's the middle of the day here in Plano, Texas, but it is like super duper overcast. I don't want you to
somebody
think
took
like
the sun away.
yeah. I don't want you to think I'm like turning into like Dark Quincy, like the nocturnal,
Yeah,
vampire dude. Like jumping back to what you were saying, how old were you when your first was born? Your first of
I
three, right?
yes, first of three. Um, and I was 24
Yeah, that's
when I had my
young.
first kid.
That's
Yeah.
super young to have a kid. Like in most cultures, like you probably have a kid when you were like 30 something. I had a kid when I was 34. So like you think about like the additional 10 years I had to accumulate skills and, b- emotionally mature and like all that stuff. You're like doing it on hard mode, raising a kid at 24.
Yeah, but I also think it is a blessing. It is in it got me to get my stuff together.
Yeah.
It got me to have these realizations of, oh, I need to actually push myself to create a life that I would enjoy doing every day and, you know, being able to build meaningful things for the world, right? That's
So building meaningful things for the world and ideologically choosing not to go work at a defense contract job, which those jobs are good jobs, right?
yeah,
But they do involve indirectly often building, systems that go out and kill people. So
right.
so I just want to be clear. Like I'm not like ideologically, like it's not a huge part of my identity that I'm like a pacifist or something like that. But I can certainly, I guess, understand why you would want to take that path. So the opportunities that were immediately available to you as a new dad were just working in a local hospital.
Yeah, yeah, or other factory jobs as well. So it's not very technical, like you said. The You're not going to become a um, 10x mopper or cleaner or whatever. Um, but yeah, it was you take the job you have that can pay the bills and use the limited free time to upskill.
Yeah. And how many hours a week were you working at this point? Was it like a 40-hour a week gig?
It was 40 to 50, depending
Yeah.
on overtime and if if my replacement didn't show up, I would have to stay, and so all stuff like that. And it's a hospital, so depending on staffing concerns, is you would get mandated to stay. Your 8-hour day turns into a 10 or 12.
Yeah, and you had a baby at home.
Yep.
Can you describe like the home life? Like, your wife was she also working at the time, or like?
Yeah, so she was working. She would work 8 to 1, at the local grocery store here in the florist department. I would pick her up, and I would be watching my son all the time while she was gone and hacking away on a laptop, and then I'd pick her up, bring her home, then I'd go off to work for 3 to 11:30.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that sounds like a pretty arduous day. Like how many hours were you sleeping a night, would you say?
Oh, it was like get home around midnight, try to force myself into bed at 12:30, and then up at 6:37.
Yeah, that's not a lot of sleep.
6-7 hours. No.
Yeah. And how long was this going on? Like where you're on this kind of like hard mode with the young baby, and your wife's working, you're working, and
It
you're
was
dropping her off. And
it was 3 years of that.
3 years. So would you say that like the average amount of sleep you were getting during that 3 years was less than 7 hours a night?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And for people who listen to the podcast frequently, I always tell people try to sleep like 7.5, 8. Ben Awad, a very prolific software engineer, sleeps 9 hours a day, right? So
sleep is so important. And
how about now?
Well, so sleeping much more, even with 3 kids. But I would say I'm getting 8 to 9 a night.
That's
now.
great. Congratulations. Have you noticed big differences in your cognitive performance?
Massively. But that's also the CPAP machine is massively helpful.
So CPAP, describe a CPAP for people who are unaware of this, because I have lots of family members who use these, and I might need to use one at some point as well myself.
So CPAP machine, it is a machine that pumps air. There's a tube, and you wear a mask, so it goes over your nose and your mouth, and it creates a positive airflow in your airway to keep your airway open, so you don't stop breathing in your sleep.
Yeah, so a lot of people have what's called sleep apnea, which is apnea means like not breathing.
It's where your airway actually physically closes and you stop breathing in your sleep.
Yeah, and if you stop doing that, do you like snap awake eventually and you're like get a gasp for air? How does it?
Yes.
What usually happens?
So basically, you stop breathing for some period of time, and then all of a sudden you take, your body goes, oh, oops, got to remember to breathe, and then big gasp, and you either wake up fully, like, big gasp, break, you sit up and you start breathing, or it's just your body slowly you just start breathing again in your sleep.
Yeah.
And if you have enough of those, that's what you call sleep apnea, and they do it, but it's events per hour.
Yeah. How old were you when you discovered that you had sleep apnea?
2 years ago.
Okay.
So
you put this mask on, you plug it in, and essentially it kind of like creates this pressure that forces you to breathe. It doesn't let you stop breathing.
Yeah, it keeps your airway open, and I went from it was 75 events an hour for my
75.
sleep study.
It's like basically every breath, practically.
So every 5 events an hour is considered sleep apnea. It was like mild sleep apnea. I had the high score. I hit the high score. Not something the doctor's happy about, though.
Well, with the machine, like, do you sleep just as well as somebody who doesn't have sleep apnea?
Yes. Yeah.
So it just completely like solves the problem essentially, as long as you bring the machine with you. And I'm sure it's kind of a pain because you probably can't like roll over. You
It's
probably lose some degree of flexibility in
so,
sleeping.
some degree, but it's like you said, sleep is so important for your cognitive abilities, and like they've done studies now where sleep apnea can affect ADHD symptoms. So if you treat like the sleep apnea, that could. I'm not a doctor, but just like
Yeah. No, this is not
just
medical advice.
sleep is so important.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well,
uh,
that's pretty rad that you were able to like discover this and get it treated. So now, I mean, like, how would you contrast your cognitive ability now that you're sleeping a
it's
lot and you're sleeping with the CPAP machine versus when you were
it's
working as
night
a
and day.
janitor?
It's totally different.
Let's say
It's,
hypothetically somebody gave you like a leak code type problem or something like that. Like you get some algorithm challenge that you're unfamiliar with, and you're trying to solve it back then versus trying to solve it now with like a fresh night of sleep. Like, how much of a time difference do you think there would be? Like, do you think there's a multiplier on it in terms of how fast we
yes,
get it done?
absolutely. Not
Yeah,
only from just more time in the field, um, but just sleep stuff and problem solving is so much better now.
yeah,
And also just like the anxiety too, right? Is like when you're sleeping better, you're less anxious. So
yeah, yeah. And like I find that if I just am off by like an hour of sleep, then like an hour of sleep deficit, like I have to drink coffee, which I don't like to drink coffee. I like to just drink tea. But I'll be like, oh, it's a coffee day. Like
yeah,
I only slept 6 hours last night. I'm gonna be a wreck. And
right,
coffee is kind of like my way of like compensating, I guess, for sleep.
right. Which whole vicious cycle, right? Is
Yeah,
like,
coffee makes it harder to sleep the next night.
well, that's you see a lot of developers crushing monsters and
Yeah,
energy
you get into the
drinks. It's like
toxic realm.
it's like
And then beyond that, people abusing like ADHD medicine when they don't necessarily have an ADHD diagnosis, stuff like that. Like
yeah.
there, you can burn the candle at both ends and get short term gains, but it's at the
You can
cost of
burn the
long
whole
term.
candle.
You can burn the whole
That,
candle. I like that.
it's not both ends. You just light the whole thing up, and I think that's what I was doing. Right, I was lighting the entire candle when I was working full time coding and trying to be the best dad and partner that I could be. Is And I think there is a level of burnout that you have to be careful of.
Yeah. So you were able to train yourself in the ways of the Jedi. Like you learned full stack software development with JavaScript ecosystem, and you were able to eventually go out and get a job as a developer. And can you talk about like that process, approximately what your wind up time was? Obviously, the job market was completely different then than it is now. People always in the comments like, "You're just giving people false hope. There's no jobs out there," and stuff like that. And yes, I just want to admit it is. I'll be like full,
Yeah.
you know, what is it? Full mea culpa mode. Like it's a lot harder to get a job now as a dev than it was before the pandemic, before interest rates like spiked, and before like all the apprehension around like automation and stuff like that really started to seep into the discourse. But maybe you can take us back to that time you're working as a janitor, you're teaching yourself to code, and that wind up to getting the first job.
Yeah. So um, it was 2017 to 2022. So it was 5 years of
Yeah,
sort of this, right? Is coding on the weekends, coding before work, after work, um, and my 30-minute lunch break, I was spent mostly hacking away on something. And what I learned there is even that 30 minutes, like even if that's all I got done that day, it's a step forward for whatever project I was working on, right? It's pushing the ball up the hill slowly. Um, yeah, and it was a lot of interviews, a lot of rejection, because people see janitor on a resume and they're like, no. Um, and what happened there was a lot of it came down to networking on Twitter, on social media, LinkedIn, getting on coffee chats, um, and also sharing what I was doing. I think a lot of people miss that step. It's not just, hey, I have a bunch of projects in GitHub repos. It's like, no, you have to like you sort of have to DevRel yourself. It's like you're your own. You have to get people to like, you know, look at your project and go, oh, they can actually they know how to code. Cool. Like we're working on a project, and that's actually how I landed my first role. Which, which was it was a hey, we're doing this new startup. We want to interview you. What do you think? And I almost said no because I was so burnt out in 2021. Um, I had just gone through just like 8 hour long interviews for a company to get a rejection. It's like,
Yeah.
um, and like when they asked me, I was like, when my friend asked me, hey, we're doing this thing. Do you want to interview for it? We have money to pay you. It was like, I almost said no because I was like, I need time to recover. Like,
Yeah.
um,
But you
I
didn't
don't.
say no. You went ahead and went forward with the interview.
Yes, which is actually funny because Twitter didn't save my draft of saying no.
So Twitter's janky
Uh,
code base is the reason that you got your first developer job.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, Elon. Well, this is pre Elon,
Pre Elon. Yeah.
but yeah, it's um, and this is also sort of my philosophy of just like, if you're unsure, say yes and figure it out. Like, um, it's I've gotten many jobs that way from being a dishwasher. It was like, hey, you free today? Our dishwasher didn't show up, and we know you need some cash. Sure, like
Yeah,
I'll
that's
fix.
chill. That's chill of people to like be on the lookout for opportunities, even if they're like, kind of like menial jobs. And it's chill of you to have the humility to say like, look, I really need this money. I don't care. And a lot of people would like turn up their nose at like washing dishes and think, oh, that's for like the high school kids or the people that don't have like work permission in the United States or something like that. That job is below me. But it doesn't seem like you're the kind
No,
of person who thinks that certain
no,
work is below them.
it's no, and I think that's I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, how do you if you have to keep the lights on, right?
Yeah.
How do you keep the lights on? Well, you have to do. There are going to be times where um, you're going to have to update your node packages at some point, right? It's like that's not fun work. That's not the new fun feature that I was working on. It's like, no, you're going to have to do things that are uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah. I'm gonna pause for just a second. My cat is outside and it's raining, and she's like looking at me through the window with the most, sad eyes. I'm gonna let her in real quick. All right, I'm back. Yeah, it's just out like downright apocalyptic looking out there. It's so dark. Okay.
You forget to pay to keep the sun on. Is that
Yeah, I didn't pay my sun bill.
yeah? Uh,
So let's talk about the general like vibe of hitting this new developer job. Like, so you get through the interview
yep.
process, and it's your first role where you're getting paid to write code.
First,
And
yep.
what were the first few months like?
It was a lot. It was a new startup. Um, we had some paying users, but definitely not like you know can't wait for the feature to go out. It's like we were deploying 2 to 3 times a day features, brand, new code base to me, so which is just takes a long time to get feeling comfortable in. Um, it was also my first interaction with TypeScript, which in a new job, new tech thing, felt was a lot. It was like there's all these extra characters in my JavaScript. What the heck is going on? Um,
So
and
what you had learned from just doing tutorials and building projects on your own, like you found that like there was a lot more on top of that that you
yeah,
also needed to
yeah,
learn.
there was like, um, I learned what like workers and job queues and all of this stuff, and I'm like, this is very over my head, but you know, I'll take I'll you know I'll take a swing at it and um, keep trying. And we're building really neat stuff. It was it was gift cards for e-commerce, um, which lot of technical stuff behind that,
Yeah.
especially
I mean, a lot
backend
of fraud prevention, I would imagine.
fraud
Anything
prevention
financial,
and
you got to worry about fraud.
bummer, right? like
Yeah. There are a lot of desperate
uh,
people out there.
yeah, but this was like monitoring. You have a gift card, right? It has $5 on it, and they used $2 on it. Okay, now you have to store that value, like that new value somewhere, and whatever, and then do percentages off that to get paid, and it's just very confusing if you're not careful. Um, so TypeScript is helpful for that because you don't need you want decimals, not set whole numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. With TypeScript,
Uh,
you can be as specific as you need to, right? Like, so just reduce the likelihood of, type errors, other
well,
types of,
instead
yeah.
give $1 instead of $10, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's big difference.
Yeah. You
Um,
can make a small mistake and bankrupt yourself very quickly if you don't have good QA.
yes, yeah,
Yeah. So you worked at this job, like learning the ropes, in this big code base, working on kind of like a harder problem of just tracking balances of gift cards, other aspects of gift card issuance, acceptance. At what point did Coder Dads come along? Coder Dads is a community that you created to get fellow dads
yeah.
who
So
are.
Coder Dads was before the first role.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hear a
Um,
little bit about that. I want to hear about the origins of Coder Dads. This
yeah,
is a
so
really cool community that my understanding is you help dozens of people get their first jobs
yeah, and
in
it's
software
like
development.
now they're off doing great things, and yeah, Coder Dad started because it was I I saw on Twitter there was like the Moms Who Code group,
Yeah.
um, Twitter group, awesome community over there, and a lot of the dads that code stories that I was seeing is they've been developers their entire life. It's like they started at 10, got a computer, and have been coding since. And then I was like, there's got to be, like, I connected with a few dads that were trying to go, the boot camp route and trying to learn to code. They heard this thing was cool. They're doing the same thing. They were making ends meet at a day job or doing odd jobs or whatever. And then they were coding on the side. And it was like, let's make this a community for for dads that are trying to get into tech. And there's a bunch of connections that got made in there, and there are people, you know, getting their first roles and moving on, which is
Yeah. Do you have any particular like anecdotes you can share? You don't have to give the names or anything, but like just like some
um
wins from that period.
well, yes, um seeing somebody get their first role in tech and be able to buy their first house where their kids would each have their own bedroom. Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's like, and just seeing people put in the work and get rewarded for it. And also, like, these are all dads that I would, have them over at the house, right? They're not local, and I think that's something that I struggled with as well, is not being in a big tech hub.
Yeah. And you're in
Um,
upstate New York, kind of a college town up there.
yep,
I
yeah.
mean, what's the population of your?
I think 25,000 when college is in session.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's like pretty small. That's way smaller than like the median, I guess, city size in the United States. Like smallest place I've lived is like maybe like a million in the metro. So it's like really small,
right,
and
yeah,
as a result, there's probably a lot less opportunity. There's probably a lot less kind of like communities you can be a part of. Yeah, like so, Coder Dads provided a lifeline to these people where they could interact with
yeah,
people who had a lot in common with them.
yeah, and also just I think just the camaraderie of like, you're a dad, I'm a dad, we're struggling, like, and just like I'm getting this JavaScript error and not feeling like embarrassed about not knowing, like, oh, that error is this thing that you have to fix. It's like, I'm getting this error. Anybody seen that before? And then having the transparency to just like jump in and not sort of no egos of like, oh yeah, that's this, and fix the
Yeah.
problem and move on
So it's kind of like Stack Overflow, but without all the elitism. Like you
without the
stripped away
internet
a lot of that
clicks.
because everybody's just like a dad helping one another. So there's that additional empathy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also like, hey, my kid's been acting out in school. What, have any of you guys had any, so heavy conversations about
So it was a
that?
peer group where people could share kind of life advice as well.
Yeah, because I mean, that's I think a lot of people need that
Yeah.
right now, and in the past too. It's like, um,
And this was a Slack group. Like I say, I keep talking about it in past tense. I'm not sure how
yeah,
active it is today.
it's, I use it basically just for DMs from the people that I've made connections with. It's not, it's not super active. I would like to see it get more active,
Hmm.
but um,
Yeah. Well, if
again,
anybody's
it's
listening to
also
this and they're a dad, and if they
it's
joined, like, would they get a response if they were to like
yeah,
drop in and introduce themselves?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
respond to every new member that joins, um, and you know be
Awesome.
as welcoming as possible. And that's I think especially for the career transitioners, it's hard to feel like you're supposed to be in the space, right? It's like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And for every kind of like layer of otherness you feel, um, like if you don't have like U.S. citizenship or something like that, you're here on like an H-1B or something, or if you suffer from disabilities or you live with disabilities, or if you have any number of different things that kind of make you feel like farther from the mainstream, kind of like, and being somebody outside of tech who doesn't necessarily have a computer science degree, hasn't necessarily worked, like done internships at Microsoft and stuff like that. It's just
right.
like additional layers of difficulty. And I think there's so much opportunity for these kind of like affinity group type Discords or Slacks to be there to like give people just like a peer group, people
A
whom
peer
they can
group.
relate to one another with.
And I also think the other thing is the other jobs that you and I have both had have directly translated to success in tech.
Yeah.
Um, I think that gets overlooked a lot. A lot of it is, just rah technical ability. And it's like, could you talk to a customer that's having, a technical problem and have, like, make sure that they feel supported and heard? Like, yes, that is a skill you sort of have to learn on how to handle customers and being in support.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And having just outside domain expertise and bringing that to the table makes a big difference. My background is in teaching. I worked as a teacher and a school director for like about a decade, and as a tutor. Like I tutored during college and stuff like that. So education is really like the field that I chose. But then I learned, software development skills on top of that, and kind of layered that on top, and that's where FreeCodeCamp comes in. And similarly, like your electrical engineering background, your interest in music, all these things, these are potential, other realms that you can call upon and import, analogies from, or directly apply skills that you've learned that are just kind of like lying dormant in the recesses of your, skill set. And you
for
can
sure.
like
And
kind of pluck those and bring those to the fore.
it's not always coding that is going to get you your next role or get you the opportunity. It's like, I really like that person. I think we would work well together.
Yeah.
That can happen.
Interpersonal relationships are huge. You're somebody more than other people whom I've talked with, and I'm speaking like you and I think this might be the first time we've had a synchronous conversation, but like I've read like your blog, I've listened to other conversations you've had with other developers and stuff like that. So that's what where I'm kind of getting this from. But you're somebody who has just kind of unapologetically put yourself out there, networked. One of the things that you do that I think is very dramatic, and I'm not ready to take this step myself, is you literally just put like a Calendly link out on LinkedIn or Twitter where people can use that to like book a time to talk with you and like have a coffee chat, right? Can you talk about that? Like your efforts at just getting to know everybody in the space?
Yeah. Yeah, I think just I heard listening to podcasts was like, I think I would like talking to people. I don't being in a small area, not a lot of who's busy working and trying to career transition. I'm not talking to a whole lot of people, so I one day decided to post on Twitter and LinkedIn a Calendly link with some times, and most of those times were around my lunch break at work. So I would use my lunch break to do these coffee chats with people, and had some. You meet a lot of interesting people doing cool things that way, and now those people are in my network, and it's like, oh, you know, Quincy just released this video doing the music thing. I'm going to share it to my buddy who knows, who likes video game music,
Yeah.
right? And then who knows where that connection goes from. And it's like, I always say, you're one DM away from having like your life changed. Hopefully for the better. But
Yeah.
let's make it a positive there is like, you if you see somebody asking for, I mean, that's literally how this worked out. You made a post saying you were looking for
Yeah, looking for
people
devs
to talk to,
interview, and you're
and
somebody who I had heard of, Coder Dads, and so I knew of you, but it just hadn't occurred to me like, oh, I should reach out to him and talk with him.
um
And you
so yeah,
proactively like threw your hat in the ring, which takes a certain amount of audacity and chutzpah to do, because a lot of people would be modest and be like, oh, I'll just wait till he discovers my greatness, but I may not discover your greatness.
Yeah,
You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying? So one of the questions I have is how you go about you. So just to recap what you said there, like you never know, like you're one DM away from, changing your life for the better. There are lots of opportunities out there that are unseen, that just by kind of like sending out, scanners, turning your scanners on and like beaming stuff out and stuff like that, stuff starts bouncing around, and maybe some of that comes back and hits, and it's not just noise, it's signal. There's an argument for just trying to put a lot of yourself out there. Is that like accurate? Emmett, can you hear me?
Somebody's internet's freaking out.
Yeah, I think it might be mine. It's weird that like I can hear you, but take a look at. I went to fast.com to check my internet speed.
They took the sun away. Your internet.
I have very low internet. I've got like 1 gigabit per second. Wait, that's not low. That's really fast. 900 megabits per second. Okay, I don't know what happened. It may have just been like a local outage with Riverside. I've noted it. 54 to 55 internet issues. Please edit out. Okay, so I made a note of that. Okay, so even though I say we don't do editing, we will edit out certain sections like that, or like when I let my cat out. Let my cat in.
Just
Okay.
the weird internet.
Yeah. So I'm gonna redo the question. So Emmett, essentially what you're saying is just by beaming out a lot of stuff, things are going to be bouncing around, and you're not necessarily going to see all the opportunities out there, but stuff will just bounce around and things will come back to you, and maybe you get an opportunity that way that you would not have gotten had you not put yourself out there.
Right. Yeah. It's also the great quote is, if you don't ask, it's always a no.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to, get past. Is like, it's the you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Quote, but it's true for the internet too. Is like, if you don't share the stuff that you really enjoy, right, more of that will come your way. So like, if you're being super upbeat and positive and cheering people on, you will find other people that will motivate and cheer others on as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some setbacks you faced, because I know that it's not all just sunshine and rainbows. Like, there's been a lot of setbacks for a lot of people right now. A lot of people have been laid off. My understanding is you got laid off twice in a row, and then from
twice in
developer
one
jobs.
year. Yep.
Twice in 1 year. And then when you went to go get another developer job, it was a much harder market to get back into. And ultimately,
Yes.
you accepted a job as a support engineer, which is kind of like a hybrid support and software engineering role. And then you've spent the past 2 years within that company trying to gradually pivot that role into just like a traditional developer role. Is that an accurate summary?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, thing about early stage startups is role reduction tends to happen, and layoffs, right? We'll call them what they are. And it was first one was May of 2022, and the second one was October 2022.
Yeah. So pandemic era. Kind of.
But
tail end of pandemic.
but I went, after the first layoff, due to my network and listening to podcasts and sharing my my learnings from them, I got a job. I got my second job 2 weeks after being laid off. So great, connections paid off. Sweet. In October of 2022, that's when Meta, all of the FANG companies were laying off like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
And it was like, when that the second layoff happened, I was like, I'll just do this again. I did it once, I can do it again, and then very quickly learned that's not the case.
Yeah, so it's kind of an aberrational moment. Like, I'll just put things in context. I don't want to take us out of the human element of that, but what happened, and this is what like a lot of economists agree on. This is what like a lot of devs that I've talked to on the FreeCodeCamp podcast agree on, is a bunch of companies kind of overhired because interest rates were low, and they could just kind of stockpile developers and use that as like a, hey, we cornered the market on devs, so it's harder for our competitors to get devs, and it's like a competitive advantage. But then a lot of these companies had to lay people off. And what happened was like the small startups, like the one you were working at, weren't necessarily overhiring, but the big tech companies were. And so they kind of like released all this talent onto the market at the same time through these big waves of layoffs. And that's why to this day, you still hear people complain about how hard it is to get a developer job. And there's probably a lot of truth to that too, because there's still a lot of, experienced engineers who are working at FAANG companies that are still like chopping around trying to find a new role. So it's just more candidates chasing fewer roles, and supply and demand, like wages go down. It becomes harder to get a job. It becomes a buyer's market for talent where you can make people jump through way more hoops than traditionally you would have been able to. Like people wouldn't have tolerated doing like 8 rounds of interviews and stuff. But now people are like, desperate for a job.
Employers can be very, very picky about
so take us back to that revelation that I'm not going to be able to just use my network, and like hard work is actually going to be a protracted job search this time.
Yeah, and that was, and that sucks, right? Is like, I think a lot of, and a lot of it was, I didn't get a FAANG severance package. It was like, you get your last check, good luck. And it's like, I didn't have 3 months or 6 months to figure something out. It was like, I need something now. And a lot of that came back to, I was going back to apply at the hospital again when I got a call with my current job offer.
You were literally going back to reapply for your janitorial job, or I think at some point you transitioned to working in the ER?
Patient registration, in the emergency room. Either of those at that point, really, because it was 5 months without work as a sole provider for family of 5. It's don't recommend doing that if you can.
But it took you a while to realize how the situation fundamentally changed. It's not like you were probably confident up until that point. Like,
I was getting to second, third round interviews, and then companies are just like, actually, we're not hiring anymore.
Just like across the board, like we frozen.
Yeah, we're just hiring freeze. It's like, it's.
Yeah, and I have friends who actually got offers and then had those offers rescinded. I had friends who had started, went through like a day or two of training, and then they came at Facebook. They're just like, you're right. But even those people got severance because it was big tech, right? Big tech has so much money compared to Startup Land. Startup Land, everything is done as inexpensively as possible because people don't have any money. So, like, if you're working at a small tech startup, you shouldn't expect like a big generous severance package because there's no money in these tiny startups.
Right, but I, and the other thing is, a lot of it with these economic conditions, it's not you as the dev. You've done nothing wrong. It's just these situations come up and a business has to make a business decision, and it sucks. Bring back the human element there.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can describe like what the past couple years have been like since you started working as a support engineer, and how it differs from what you were doing before, which was purely like feature development and stuff like that.
Well, the thing about support engineer is you actually get to see you get to see a lot more of the issues that customers are having with your product. It's like, hey, this, the flow from this dashboard to this dashboard's funky. And that's the explanation you'll get, right? Of like what the issue is. And then it's more of like trying to replicate how they, is that a them, or is that our actual product is like
Yeah.
the routing for those pages is actually wrong. Okay. Well, then I can go in there and go into the code base and fix it.
So essentially, you're still doing development, but it's primarily complaint driven development instead of like some product manager standing up. We need to be able to do this, this, and this. It's like, no, this is not working, and I can verify that it's not working. I'm going to go in the code base and I'm going to fix it.
Right. Or like, sometimes it's even just like, you find something like a job server got stuck. So it's like not processing requests fast enough. So you're like, okay, I've confirmed that the job server is frozen. Can we restart it?
Yeah.
And it's made a lot of the learning how to troubleshoot those issues and sort of handle the customer as well has given me a stronger emphasis of like making sure we test things really well before we push to production, or from the feature side of things. It's like you do a whole refactor of like the UI, right? And your engineers are off doing that. And then when you launch it and you have a customer come in pretty angry, upset, they're like, I use this feature, where is it?
Yeah.
Oops.
So just like not understanding fundamentally how people are using your software and making presumptions and maybe thinking things that are not important that actually are important.
Yes. And that is one of the differences between like being at a startup and having like recurring customer revenue, right? Is like, we have customers that are paying us because they're using the software a certain way. We can't just, pull the rug from them because we like it, the software to work this way. It's like, no, they have a fully supported use case for how they're using the product. We need to support them for, as long as they're our customer.
Yeah. Well, I have like a bunch of questions that I want to fire at you pretty rapid fire here,
Sure.
because you are somebody who has kind of gone through like a lot of these setbacks and come out on top, and you're still, working hard. Like this, would you say you're still pretty early in your career? Like you're what,
Yes.
30?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I turn 33 tomorrow.
Wow. Yeah. So you're super young. You've got maybe like 40 years, 50 years ahead of you.
Fingers
development.
crossed. Yeah.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. And like for you, this is just the beginning, right? In the grand scheme of things. I want to get some insight into like how you approach building a reputation online, because that's something you've done a very good job of, through Coder Dads, through just being out there, being very active on LinkedIn, especially like LinkedIn. I think with Twitter kind of not being that great of a place anymore, in my humble opinion, like a lot of people have migrated over to LinkedIn, and I actually get way more engagement on stuff that I share on LinkedIn, and like way more thoughtful comments and stuff than I do on Twitter. But like, how have you been using LinkedIn to continue to raise awareness of yourself and to also raise up other people? Like I see frequently, if somebody is looking for a job, you'll like say, hey, help this person get a job. They're super chill. Like you're constantly kind of like doing those kinds of things.
The reposts are free, right?
Yeah.
It's sharing other people's stuff is, I mean, that's honestly how I've gotten my roles, is sharing other people's stuff. It's not necessarily my stuff. It's like, hey, this person's doing something cool. You should check it out. And Um, and I'm also try to be, you know, I try to be the person I am, try to be myself fully
Yeah.
online, at the coffee shop, you know, getting groceries. Like, if you see me out, I will try to be, you know, the same person online as offline.
Yeah. And that is one thing you've said in the past that really stuck out to me is like there's a tendency for us to try to be like puff out our chests and really like try to be our like the most charitable possible version of ourselves in terms of like oh, you know, not necessarily acknowledge like mistakes or faux pas or just like talk about ourselves in third person on our LinkedIn profiles and stuff like that. It just you know, like you are a big advocate of just being real, being who you are.
Well,
Why is that?
it's because I've gotten on calls with people that I've met online, and they're a totally different person on the call than they are from their LinkedIn or Twitter persona, and it's super off-putting. It's like my brain short circuits on it. It's like you're not, you know, it's you're not who you are online, and that's weird. Like
Yeah.
my body can't. Like
And
I
that
can't
just
judge
distracts
that.
you the entire time. Like you're just distracted by the fact that like, I mean, like that somebody like you know airbrushed the heck out of her or like photoshopped the heck out of their photo and like you know has all these credentials that like you talk to them and it they seem to having a passing grasp on some of the concepts that they act like they have a really deep grasp on in like their LinkedIn
Yeah,
bio. I think it
yeah,
used to be the
it's
skills and you could self-report all the different skills. Kind of the equivalent of like pretending you're really good at French and then going to France and like struggling to like order at the table or something like that
right,
in
but
front of
that's and I think that's also sort of like the job market thing too, right? It's like
yeah
I know JavaScript, and it's like, or I know all of JavaScript. I know all of it.
yeah
No, like nobody does. Like it's yeah,
yeah. There's a tension though because a lot of less sophisticated non-technical managers might just presume like, oh, we need somebody who knows all of JavaScript. Like, why don't you know all JavaScript? Why are you?
so they right they may be self-selecting people out, right, in the interview process of like, oh, we need a JavaScript developer. They must know 100% of JavaScript.
Yeah,
Well,
or they need to know be familiar with a whole bunch of frameworks that essentially do the same thing, right?
right,
Like
yeah,
in the requirements.
yeah,
And so
it's
you are just like don't pretend you have any mastery of anything that you don't actually have mastery of. Don't pretend
but
at
like
all.
we're all learning things. Like every like I joke that I'm a professional stumbler. Um, like I will stumble my way through a problem, but I will keep showing up and trying to figure it out and not um try to be as real as possible about it. Like it's I get very frustrated about it, seeing people puff out their chest and be somebody who they're not.
Yeah.
Because down the line, you're not going to be happy with yourself, right? That's
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not going to be happy with yourself, but like, you know, as a sociopathic person who doesn't really care or have any sort of remorse or regret or anything like that, and there are people like that. All right.
yeah,
I believe that there are people out there who do not give a damn, and at the end of the day, they got like the six-figure job, and you know, and they whatever they had to do to get there, you know, um, the means or the ends justify the means, whatever,
yeah,
right? And they're
yeah,
not introspective, they're not reflective people like
right.
you and me, and probably most of the people listening to this. But we do have to kind of compete against those people. I always joke that like if you could be good at one thing, be good at lying, then you're good at everything, right? Like
Yeah,
sure, I'm your man. Oh, you need this, you need this. Like and of course like a lot of times that breaks down, but you can fake it till you make it for a long time at a company before somebody realizes. And if you're at like a big tech company, they won't necessarily fire you outright. They'll have like some process that they go through, like 6 months of like
right.
you
Yeah,
know notices and stuff like that, and you can just collect the money and just you know go about your sociopathic ways and pretend you never even worked at that company and stuff like that. Like there are people out there that succeed by just ignoring norms and rules, And frankly, you and I are competing with them.
Yeah, yeah. But
So to some extent, do you not feel that you're like disadvantaging yourself by completely disarming, and just being your true, like, under like normal powered self when there are people out
yeah,
there purporting to be super powered?
people have their power gloves on. Yeah, yeah. I think. I mean, maybe, but again, I think it. You know, I think being myself out online and in a job situation is like I am a much better coworker and employee when I'm not having to put on a face every day.
Yeah. And I mean, you're somebody who actually stays at a job for a long time, right? And you're trying, like right now,
I'm
you're
trying.
trying to transition into a more like traditional developer role from your support engineer role at the company. And you're gradually doing that. You're gradually doing more and more feature development
Yeah,
and getting back into that.
yeah.
And you could have
But
just
also,
gone
this
and tried
stuff
to jump jobs.
takes time, right?
Yeah.
It's like, um, you don't just magically. There are things that take time and work, and you have to you have to level up, right? You
Yeah.
need like like you need to level up and get the skills to you actually need to build those skills. You can't just say I'm level 15.
Yeah. Oh
It's
man,
like
like, do you watch Star Trek ever?
it's not recently, but it's
Well, I
been
saw the Star
in
Trek
my
movie
past.
that came out like, I don't know, 15 years ago. It's J.J. Abrams, and like
Oh yeah,
Kirk just becomes the captain. It's absurd. but like,
right.
I was like, what a horrible lesson to teach people. Like, what? Like, I'm sure the original Captain Kirk like put in lots of tours of duty of doing like all the
And
different things before he became the captain. But in this movie, you just have him going
but
from getting
that's
kicked
the
out of the
social
academy to being the captain. And
that's the
it's
social media ness of it, right? It's
yeah,
like, oh, you only see Kirk become captain. You don't see,
yeah,
10 years ago when he was like front lines whatever. Like
yeah,
and I think that's also something for, you know, those watching to remember is like, you know, social media is a lot of highlight reels, but, you know, things good things take time.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And so like a lot of people like me, maybe to an extent, like would just say, don't use social media. Just get off social media.
well,
It's gonna warp your brain and your perception of like how much hard work go like inputs and outputs essentially. Like you're gonna have a disproportionate view of like, oh, you see this person winning. Wow, they've got their leaderboard where they're like, halfway to making
yeah,
$1 million in revenue from like their business or something like that, and like everybody's just winning constantly, and whenever there's a setback, that's not necessarily reported. I mean, it's kind of like crime statistics in the news, like like every little crime gets reported, but like every time some person helps a little old lady across the street, that doesn't get
doesn't no,
reported. So
right.
it's kind of like that phenomenon where people think that like, why am I the person who's not winning left and right, like when in practice, like, a lot of people are probably overstating their accomplishments, or they're understating all their setbacks. But you stay on social media because it's worth exposing yourself to that kind of like phenomenon in order to continue to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of it is also like um I said it before, but it's like if you're posting stuff that you're genuinely interested in, you will find the community that is also interested in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And by not sharing what you're actually about, you will miss that um, community or opportunity of whatever
Yeah.
that is. It's
Let's talk a little bit practical about using LinkedIn and using social media to make these connections. So you're a big fan of these kind of coffee chats, or just like quick calls that you make with people, like
yeah,
synchronous, real time, Google Meet, or something like that. And
yeah,
you
free
share your
free Google Meet.
Calendly link.
It's yeah, yeah. I think because you never know where a connection is going to get you, and it may not be, you know, 2 months from now. It may be 5 years from now, but it's like I had a call with this person that's doing this, and then like you check in on that 6 months down the road, and you're like, oh, they're you know they're at this company, sweet. I know somebody over there. Like you can connect them, and then it really builds that web of. Then you get put as when people think about you as like, oh, they build bridges. They build connections with people across across networks, and not even necessarily just like technical, but it's like I know the hiring manager over at XYZ Corp. I know the perfect person for them. Right? It's like, oh, they're into 80s hair metal. I know a developer who's into 80s hair metal. Let them
these things don't seem like they'd be important, but they are. People do like
they're so important.
Like so many people I know are like really into Star Trek, and I'm into Star Trek, and like that is like an immediate thing where we can start talking about like season 3 of Picard or something like that, right? And like suddenly it's like this whole thing, or people that are really into like a certain sport or something like that. Like a lot of
it's like, let's talk about Star Trek on the job, right? It's like it's like you want to work with those people. You want to work with the people that you have similar interests into, and it's like, oh, hey, did you see the game last night? Yeah. Like, you want to work with people that you're going to spend most of your time with them. You're going to spend at least 40 hours a week with your team, right? So might as well you like your coworkers.
Yeah, and like people who are interested in stuff. I mean, it is a criteria. Like there's the whole cultural fit thing. And I'm not saying like everybody who works at Free Code Camp is like a Trekkie or anything. Actually, I think there might be a few of us, but
not yet.
But it is just one of many considerations, right? When you're trying to hire somebody, like, could I like grab the proverbial beverage with this person and have a conversation, or would it be completely tedious? And would I be so excited to get out of there at 5 at quitting time, right? And if people are, and a lot of this is toxic, frankly. Like I've been at organizations where they go out and they drink a bunch of alcohol after hours, and you kind of like feel pressured into that and stuff like that. And I don't think that's healthy. But and I don't think it's healthy if it means like overwork. Like this is abused all the time in the game industry because everybody's into video games and stuff like that, and they'll kind of like, managers will kind of like leverage that affinity you feel for games, like
come on, like a means just 2 more hours.
Just 2 more hours, we got to ship. Come on, like, and they're not accurately budgeting when things are going to get done, or other considerations, and you as the dev are like kind of like paying the price for their failings as a manager in terms of planning and stuff like that. But I do think that there's a positive here in that, like, we are humans and we are supposed to be working together, and it's not all bad when people have a lot of things in common. It can certainly be used to create like a monoculture and exclude people who like grew up overseas, for example, and don't know what Star Trek is, didn't grow up, doing the Vulcan sign to one another on the playground and stuff like that. Like you can definitely use it as it can represent a barrier, but at the same time, there, especially when it's a small team. Like your team is 13 people, I think, at your startup. It's pretty small.
Yeah, that's company size, not dev. So
yeah, and how big is the dev
total? 4.
Yeah, so that's a really tight knit group, and you probably work very closely with them, and maybe talk about like what the next few months might look like if you're able to further ensconce yourself and further transition into probably continuing to do support engineer, but let's say hypothetically they can bring on an additional support engineer and you can just take a more feature development.
I think that's a lot of it too, right? Is also like being able to talk to like product and be like, hey, being able to explain these customer issues to your product manager and your product person of like, hey, we're having, we had 100 people reach out to us saying, they would love to see this feature. We should probably, poke, nudge, nudge, add that to the roadmap. And, and by the way, it's like I scoped out, what would need to happen to get that feature implemented, right? It's sort of showing signs that you're already doing the job. I think that's really a big it could be a big bonus point for you to move up, is like, I'm already sort of doing this job that I'm interested in, but it's, making everybody else's life a bit easier if you've scoped out, a scaffolding for how you think the feature should work.
Yeah.
Especially if you have the data of customer feedback of like, we would love this feature, we would love that feature.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of customer empathy just by virtue of communicating with customers so much. And one thing a lot of companies do is they will cycle like all their devs through like a support role for a few weeks or something like that, just so they get used to communicating with end users and understanding like the use case and understanding being able to relate to the plight of customers trying to use the software and empathize with them. One question I have for you is, with everything you've learned over the past 9 or 10 years since you started learning software development, if you could go back to yourself, you're standing there, you're mopping the floor. You haven't heard the Code Newbie podcast episode with me on it yet, and you're like not really sure what the future holds, and you've got this 6-month-old at home, and you're feeling the increased pressure to be able to provide for your family. Like, what advice would you send back to yourself right now? Let's say you could just beam back maybe like 2 sentences worth of advice.
Man. I think it's just keep showing up. Keep, things will work out. You will get, things will happen if you keep showing up.
Right on, man.
It's a heavy one, but I think, keep on one foot in front of the other and don't be a jerk. That's the
yeah. Definitely, I'll co-sign that advice. Don't be a jerk. People don't like working with jerks. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the FreeCodeCamp podcast. Emmett, thank you for everything you've done to help fellow dads get into software development and encourage them. And congratulations on everything you're doing to provide for your family despite these setbacks. And I love the fact that you've got like such a positive, affirmative attitude about getting things done. There, and that you don't like hold your nose up at work that lots of people are doing around the world. You and I.
It's how the world runs.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, at the end of the day, somebody has to mop the floor.
Somebody has to mop the floor.
Right? Like, yeah, you could say, oh, there's these robots that mop the floor. You got to maintain the robots that mop the floor, and robots that mop the floor, frankly, don't do as good a job as humans do. They can't get all the angles. They don't have the level of judgment. Maybe.
What if they revolt, Quincy? What if the mopping robots revolt?
Yeah, it'd be like that scene from UHF where he's got his mop and he's like, yeah, have you ever seen the movie UHF from the 1980s?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
My mop. Turns it into a bow staff. Yeah. The robot ninja with a mop. That would be terrifying.
That's exactly how you can picture me working listening to the Code Newbies podcast.
Well, I mean, it's been an absolute blast, man, and I'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Everybody tuning in. Until next week, happy coding.